have a rectangle, the diagonal 8 centimeters, the length is x, and we're trying to find, and we're told that the perimeter of the rectangle is 20. And we've got to somehow come up with this quadratic equation. So we're going to have to use the perimeter somehow. Now, if the perimeter all the way around is 20, so all the way from there to there and back to the beginning is 20, then halfway round, so from there to there, must be 10. And it must also be 10 from here to here. So if we know that this length is x, this bit here must be 10 minus x. So for example, if x was 3, this would be 10 take away 3, which is, this would have to be 7. 10 take away 3 is 7. Okay, so that's just an algebraic way of expressing the height. Okay, we now know that we have a right-angled triangle here, and we know something about all three sides. And I'm going to use Pythagoras' theorem here to come up with this quadratic equation. Now, Pythagoras' theorem tells me that the hypotenuse squared is equal to one of the short sides squared plus the other short side squared. So let's square and add. So if I do this side squared, so x squared plus this side squared, well, I'm going to have to put that in a bracket, so 10 minus x squared, that is equal to 8 squared. Okay, removing the bracket then, x squared plus, now to square a bracket, I must write 10 minus x times another 10 minus x. Remember, squaring a bracket means multiplying that bracket by itself. And then 8 squared is 64. Right, if I continue to remove the bracket, let's use FOIL. So I'm going to do 10 times 10, which is 100. The outer terms, or 10 times minus x, is minus 10x. Here, minus x times 10, the inner term, minus 10x. And then we do this term times this term, the last two terms multiplied together. Well, that's a negative multiplied by a negative, which is positive, and x times x is x squared. And that is equal to 64. Okay, if we simplify the left-hand side now, I've got x squared plus x squared. Well, that's 2x squared. Minus 10x minus 10x, well, that's minus 20x. Plus 100 is equal to 64. And to make a quadratic equation, I need the right-hand side to be 0. So I'm going to subtract this 64 from both sides. And that's going to give me 2x squared minus 20x plus 36 is equal to 0. And I can see all I need to do now is divide everything by 2, and I can divide everything by 2 because I've got 0 on the right, and 0 divided by 2 is still 0. That's going to give me x squared minus 10x plus 18 is equal to 0. Okay, the clue into how to solve this quadratic equation is in this line here. Give your solutions correct to three significant figures. That always tells us that we need to use the formula. And the formula given to us in the front of the paper tells us that if our quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the solutions will be given by x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So if I look at my equation up here, I can see that a is the number of x squareds, well, that's just 1. B is the number of x's, in this case minus 10, and c is the number that sits on its own, and that's 18. So let's put these into this formula. X is going to be, now minus b, well, if b is already negative, then minus b will be 10, and then it's plus or minus the square root of b squared. Now be very careful here. If you just type in minus 10 squared on your calculator will give you minus 100, which is not correct. When you square minus 10, you will get 100. This number here, because you square something, it will always be positive. We're then going to take away, I'm going to put a bracket here, 4 times 1 times 18, so 4ac. Okay, and then we're going to divide by 2a. Well, that's just 2 times 1, which is 2. Give it more space. So that's going to be 10 plus or minus the square root of 100, take away, and if we do 4 times 18, that comes out as 72. And again, dividing by 2. So it comes out as 10 plus or minus the square root of 28 divided by 2. So there are two possible answers here. I can see, though, if we look at the question, x has to be positive. You can't have a negative length. So let's just see what happens. If one of the answers is negative, then I can just reject it straight away. So I'm going to go for the positive one first. X is going to be 10 plus the square root of 28 divided by 2, which comes out as 7.64575. If I work out the other one, x is going to be 10 minus the square root of 28. That's also actually going to be positive, which is fine. That one comes out as, on my calculator, 2.3542. And in fact, if I reread the question carefully, there are actually two possible answers. Should give your solutions correct. Both are positive, so both of these are possible. To three significant figures, then x is either going to be 7.65 or 2.35.